couple of months ago, I decided to buy Sonic Origins for Nintendo Switch, and needless to say, I was enjoying it a ton. Because I trust my dear friend Breaker, I got to experience all the classic Sonic games which are available on the Sega Genesis. I had previously played Sonic 2 on the Nintendo Switch on the Genesis app, and I thought it was pretty cool, but kinda unfair with how some levels were designed. But with the Origins version now allowing you to have unlimited lives, basically all my complaints were gone. I went straight to Sonic 3 and Knuckles since it was a sequel to 2, and I also tried to play Sonic 1, but that experience was kind of awful because it was kind of just like bad because the second time was kind of just, and I didn't want to play on. And that was basically done with Sonic Origins. Except I wasn't, because you see there's a strange little game which is placed between Sonic 1 and 2 in Origins, which also carries a strange title. And that game is... After the success of Sonic 1, two Sega teams were asked to make two games. An American team would end up making the widely known Sonic 2, and a Japanese team ended up making CD Sonic the Hedgehog, which would later be named Sonic CD. It was created to be a game for Sega's new Genesis CD console. Now, not a lot of people really got their hands on this game since it wasn't widely accessible, but that would all change with Sonic Origins, which loops us right back to how I discovered its existence, and I got to play it. And you might ask yourself, well, what did I think of it? Well, I thought that it was an absolute waste of a game. Well, the level designs suck, time traveling is basically useless, some acts like liquid dog shit, Metal Sonic only appears twice, the bosses suck, the special stages suck. I really didn't like Sonic City when I played for the first time, and I thought it was absolutely and insanely bad. And with that, I ended my rant on the Hit App Discord and swore to never return to the game again. And I literally one day later, I downloaded it on my phone and actually kind of enjoyed it. Oh my god, did it feel good to actually understand Sonic CD? I mean, could it actually have been so good all this time? Well, my answer now is definitely yes. And I thought that this video might be the perfect way to explain how I think that I was wrong about Sonic CD, by reflecting on my past negative opinions and generally explaining why I personally think that Sonic CD doesn't deserve all the hate it gets and is an exceptional game. Sonic City opens with Eggman anchoring Earth to Little Planet because he wants to build Eggland on it. As we progress through the story, eventually every area of Little Planet gets destroyed by Eggman and turned into an industrial wasteland. To help him with this mission, he also built a robot, whose name is Metal Sonic, but more on him later. Now, without having this aspect of Eggman destroying the beauty of Little Planet in mind, I used to absolutely hate how Sonic City looked. I mean, just look at these pictures. I thought that these looked like absolute fever dreams. I thought that Sonic City was just not a visually great looking game. But as it turns out, I was just looking in the wrong places. You see, Sonic City introduces an insanely cool idea, which is that Sonic can break the barrier of time with his speed? What? That is such a cool concept. Nice. Getting those good features / traveling through time doesn't give you anything progression-wise. Now, this is true. I initially thought this concept was wasted. I mean, what's even the point of traveling through time? The game never requires you to do so to beat the game. It's only really necessary if you want one new cutscene at the end. I mean, who cares? But I was insanely blind. You see, time travel really doesn't give you anything progression-wise, yet there's a reason to do it, which is far more compelling than for any of the other Genesis games. What makes time traveling and the 100% ending of this game so good are the good features. Never was a Sonic game have I felt the need to actually 100% the game, but this game actually just makes it necessary. What you're really trying to do in Sonic CD is not just run through the acts and bash Eggman, but it's also to explore the levels which are shorter this time and destroy the generators to make the future better. And this game actually lets you do that, which is insanely cool, because you can make bigger change happen. By going to the past in each act and destroying one Eggman generator, you upgraded with some amazing levels. Oh my god. I get it! The pure clicking levels are there on purpose, because it's supposed to throw you off, and it's supposed to make you feel disgust, because you couldn't save Little Planet. Even some of the bad future music which plays when you fail to destroy a generator in the past or get a time stone feels like it's sadistically laughing at you. And once I understood that, everything about the game just clicked. The destruction of nature is a big part of all these original Genesis games, but nowhere is it nearly as prominent as in this game. because the game forces you to see the consequences of your actions. This creates a really deep connection with the game. You feel amazing once you get the third act of a stage and are greeted by the beautiful green alien colors of our Mother Earth. So in that regard, Sonic CD really reflects our human nature. You could either just speed through these levels with tunnel vision like I did in my first playthrough, of only having the ending in sight and not caring about what happens in the world, or you could explore each level further to actually make the future better while you're at it. You don't do it for the completionist standards, like in Sonic 1, where you only get a cutscene and nothing really changes, or for the stronger character in Sonic 2. You do it because it's the right thing to do. And I think that this is one of the strongest points of Sonic CD, and what really elevates it for me. The level design really isn't the best. Yes, and that's just a fact. If you don't know, one of the most common critiques of Sonic CD is level design. And it really isn't the best. But I still think that it's good and fun nonetheless, and let me explain why. The main complaint stems from time traveling. There are past and future signs scattered all throughout Sonic CD's acts. Once you have passed one, you can either travel to the past, present, or future if you're at constant speed for a certain amount of time. Now, straight off the bat, I think that this sounds great on paper. I think that this is the best and most creative way you could have made Sonic time travel in this game. Now, where's the issue, may I ask? Well, it's because the levels are designed in such a way that this is often a big challenge. For many players, this process is tedious to do. You first have to find a fitting sign, and then somehow have to find a space where you can pull it off. Another thing is you even lose the effect which you get when activating a time travel sign when you're midway through the process, which is understandably pretty frustrating. But hear me out, okay? Just hear me out. I must admit that this level design really isn't perfect, as I already said before. But nevertheless, I think that time travel should be a challenge in this game. Just always rolling through time doesn't really present you with a challenge. When you finally travel through time to prevent a bad future, it in my opinion makes reaching to the future more worthwhile. The more challenge you go through, the more rewarding your end goal feels. As already mentioned, this could have been implemented better, but I definitely get what they were going for. Another thing which I want to say is that I think that I feel way more attached to Sonic C's levels than any of the other Genesis games is. Except Wacky Workbench, because that stage's layout is actual liquid dog shit. By experimenting with how you can keep your speed constant for a longer period of time, you think about the level layout way more. It inspires you to think creatively and outside the box, and use your surroundings to your advantage. And I think that that's just great. Sonic 1 was way more just about platforming, and I think that Sonic CD's time traveling is a very good next natural step for this formula. I've also seen a lot of people complaining about the extensive use of the spring object, but I think that these are just carefully placed objects which could be used for time travel if used properly. Because I think that everything in Sonic CD was put there for a reason. Okay, let's get the less interesting character out of the way first. I really don't have much to say about Amy. She's definitely a weaker part of this game. She's basically just the soulless damsel in distress, but I really don't mind it that much. But now, let's move on to a more interesting character. Metal Sonic. Well, Metal Sonic only shows up twice. Yeah, this was also one of my main complaints about the game. And how the bosses were also kinda lackluster. I am still a bit sad that Metal Sonic didn't appear much in the game. But I don't mind as much because he as a character is just so cool. One thing I learned about while doing research on this game is how Metal Sonic really perfectly fits this game's theme of industrial ugliness. Here we have our cool classic Sonic design. His hair, fingers, and all our shape are super nice and smooth, whereas Metal Sonic is the exact opposite. While still resembling Sonic in some way, all his edges are sharp, his fingers too, and his nose is also pointy. It really highlights Metal Sonic's and without also Eggman's brutal nature of brutal dominance, which is then reflected by their actions in this game. Metal Sonic is a brutal remix of Sonic, and what Eggman wants Sonic to be. And then you get to beat this brutal creation by beating him in a race. Oh my god, this is such a cool concept for a boss fight. He has incredible amounts of aura, and they even played a bad future version of Stardust Highway, even if you got the good future. Oh my god. So overall, I'm mostly happy with Metal Sonic. While also being on the topic of boss fights, yeah, they are a bit lackluster in this game. but in my opinion, they're still okay, and they don't really affect me in a way. Now, right off the bat, I need to clarify that I never even had a problem with the soundtrack in the first place. But I think that it's absolutely necessary to talk about it if you're talking about Sonic CD. If you don't know, Sonic SD has two soundtracks to choose from. Either the original Japanese version or the American and European version, because the Americans thought that the Japanese soundtrack didn't fit? What? But yeah, that's besides the point. I'm only going to talk about the Japanese soundtrack here, because that's the one I played with. I have listened to some American tracks, but none really stuck out to me. So, the Japanese Sonic CD soundtrack. Oh my god, it's absolutely astonishing! Never have I felt more connected to a soundtrack in a Sonic game than with Sonic CD. The level design chaining is one thing, but the music accompanying it adds so much. Whether it be getting the good feature to hear an absolutely heavenly track, or failing to save the nature of the little planet and straight up getting laughed at by the soundtrack. At least that's what I interpret with the Palm 2 Panic Bad Future mix. I really love the common theme all of these tracks have. Well, Past is a more peaceful and harmonizing track. The Bad Future ones are extremely electric and fast paced, and the present version is a transition between these two. The game's soundtrack is an absolute masterpiece, and one of my friends even says it's the best in video game history, which I can completely get behind. I myself can't keep talking about soundtrack for much longer because I'm not a technical music expert, but I've hopefully said enough for this game's absolute gem of a soundtrack. To conclude, Sonic CD is an absolutely astonishing game, and I'm really glad that I came around to it. It definitely isn't a perfect game, but I can appreciate it for what it is. I think that out of the original Genesis Sonic games, CD is the game that had the most thought put into it. I just can't help but love everything it represents. Now, at the end of the day, this is just my opinion, and I'd love to hear what you guys think of Sonic CD. Now, since this is also my first proper YouTube video, I'd love to hear your guys' feedback. What did you like? What did you not like? Please don't hesitate to leave me suggestions in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. I really couldn't be more thankful. And I'll hopefully see you again in future videos someday. Adios.